Hi everyone. This is the third session where Brian and I go ahead and work together into building a standardized, properly engineered, productized a Blazor component. We called it bVirtualize, which is going to help engineers that are trying to build a UI for software to be able to leverage OData or any other data source. We're going to make it agnostic. It can integrate with any data source, and it can start easily kind of pull data as you scroll down and all that kind of good stuff. Yesterday, Brian and I talked about high level architecture, where do we want to take this to the next level and all that kind of stuff. And today we're going to start writing some code. We're going to start writing some code today. What do you think about that, Brian? Do you think that's a good idea? I think that's a good
Oh,
idea.
this is where we should be at.
All right, all righty. So I'm gonna switch over to the screen here real quick, and I'm gonna have the focus fully on the screen here. And I'm gonna start with some things here. I'm just gonna go ahead and put together, a couple of folders, just a couple of folders. We have services in here, and we have the actual components. I'm gonna call it views, and under views there are components, and there are base components. And these base components is basically what is going to encapsulate Brian, it's going to encapsulate the native UI component that comes outside of the box when you
Mhm.
are working with a native Blazor component. So here's the deal. I can start with just a simple service. We're going to just start somewhere and then work our way down to whatever we need. I'm going to start with a simple interface in here, and here's an interface, and I'm going to just kind of call it Virtualization service. So simple virtualization service, a simple interface. And then let me go ahead here and copy something real quick that would make you probably happy. I usually like to tag all my code with some copyright of some kind, so people would understand kind
Yep.
of, why I'm building this. And, we're gonna have a nice tag here. The beautiful thing is that Visual Studio kind of adds up these notes for you automatically, so we can do this together. So here's the copyright notice, and then I'm gonna go here and say Brian Parker and Hassan Habib. What do you think about that? Does that look
Awesome.
cool?
Thank you for the recognition.
Yeah,
Cheers.
absolutely. I'm feeling kind of bad recognizing myself. This is all your idea, my friend. This is all you, but we'll see how it goes. Maybe I'll just come at the end and say, I was just a consultant in this project. I'm not really doing much in there. Okay, so here's what we can do. I think a good start here is to have a simple method that's basically going to go and say, just it's a void, and it's just going to go and say or initialize uh, load page. And I remember you saying there is an int which is start at, right? And there's also an int which is count or page
Mhm.
size. Page size. What
Yeah.
do you think about that? Page size. That's a simple
Yes.
interface that we're
Mhm.
just gonna have to write some. We're gonna have to write some tests against once we have an unimplemented, method. So here's my idea here. This one here is really easy and simple. Actually, load page is supposed to still give us back an IQueryable of some type. Now, here's my
Mhm.
question to you. Does the virtualization require the actual type of the data that is being passed in? I think that's true, right? The T
Yes.
value. Okay.
Mhm.
So let's go ahead and say this is an iQueryable of T type, and this guy will mandate a type to be passed in. That's how generic it's going to be. All
Mhm.
right. The rest of this is not needed really, I don't think. Let me just make sure, because the .NET 6, they have this new, there you go. Some annoying new stuff where they go and say, oh, implicit usings. I don't like implicit usings. They make the code hard to understand in terms of, so this implicit usings is that it goes and says, oh, just say iQueryable. Like, see this link? If it's
Mhm.
called once, you don't have to worry about it anymore, especially if it's a system using. So am I supposed to know that this is all the dependencies that my code needs if you hide this away? I don't know whose idea that was, but I don't like
Hmm.
it. Yeah.
I was going to ask you what you think of the new global imports.
Terrible, terrible, terrible. I thought people tried that in the I thought people really tried this stuff in the JavaScript world, and how we know how the global variables, how much of a nightmare they are. I want to be able to read one page of code and have the whole story being told to me. Tell
Yeah.
me your dependencies, tell me your APIs, all that. Uh,
Yeah, I've been fiddling with it, and I've sort of gone from one extreme to the other, and I'm not sure where I stand. And at the moment, I'm sort of in this hybrid in between stage where I'm only putting in my global usings file. I'm only putting in the usings for my solution.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not putting in any of the system, like this system.link. I don't put any of that stuff in there. It's just the usings for, it'll be for this folder, it'll be like the virtualization, bVirtualization.services. Right,
Gotcha,
that'd be it. Yep, just anything to do with the solution, and I group them all together there. That's all I use it for. I don't know.
gotcha,
Yeah.
gotcha. All
So I'm
right.
just sort of just trying it.
Yeah, yeah. So so here's what I'm gonna do here. What do you think about this? So this is load first page, give me start at, and then page size. I'm gonna here say load first page because
Mm-hmm.
after that, the other interface that we're gonna call is just gonna be, or the API that we're gonna call is gonna be something that just says get more. And you don't
Mm-hmm.
have to tell it where to stop and where to start because it's already doing that calculation for you underneath. That's the beauty of this service. It's going to hide that magic away from your UI layer. So you can
Yep.
still, unplug and plug that virtualization service, whatever you want, and not have to worry about how it's being exposed. What do you think about
Yep.
that part? Okay.
Sound yeah. Okay. Keen to see.
Okay.
The virtualization component always calls with a start and a quantity. Yeah. It always has the two values. So
Absolutely. We'll
yeah.
see how we're gonna have to kind of communicate that to this virtualization component. We might even expose properties, right, on the
Mhm.
service that we have, and let these properties are public so you can actually read from them if you want. So that's not a big
Yep.
deal. So okay, so here's what we can do next. We can go and say, here's a question for you. Does the virtualization component does the increment automatically?
Well, I, it seems to know exactly where to ask. I'm not sure how it does
Uh,
it.
well,
To be
who
honest,
doesn't?
I've just noticed that every time it calls and makes a call, it always has the offset to start from,
Oh.
and yeah.
That's okay. We don't want it to do the magic underneath. We just want to take advantage of its capability of kind of calculating and
Mm-hmm.
expanding. Okay, so this is load first page, and load first page, you're going to pass this and this. So let's go ahead and kind of add in a little implementation here, and that's an actual class. And then we're going to write some tests. Virtualization service.cs. And this guy is going to implement his public class, and then we're going to have an I virtualization service, and both of these take a type. So this is a type T, so is this guy. I think that would make it work. Let's go here, implement interface. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this service is gonna need from us a data source. We're gonna need to pass to it some data source that it can rely on. So I'm just gonna go up in here and say, give me this, and then I'm gonna create a constructor that takes in, oops, sorry about that. I'm gonna go here and create a simple constructor that will basically take in an IQueryable of the same type as source, data source, and I'm gonna assign this dependency as a private read-only IQueryable of T as local data source. This is data source, and I'm gonna go up in here and just assign that. So this way we have dependency injection in place. I can go and say, let me mock that guy, that iQueryable of type with whatever I want it to be and not have to worry about, what's going to happen next because now I can control what's being called and what's happening to it and all that kind of good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now
Cool.
let's go and write a unit test. Let's go and make sure that this load, so ideally, just for people that are watching us to understand, ideally I want to go and say this return, and then this is data source dot take, right, Brian? Something like this.
Yes.
Take
Take and
and then it takes in the count, so that's the page
it'll be
size.
it'll be a skip first, won't it? A skip then a take. Yeah.
Yeah, so skip like this, skip start at, and then take, and that's it. That's all we need to happen. We basically want to be able to go and say, these are the things that are being called on this guy. So we're going to mock this response. It's going to be interesting. I usually mock my own contracts, but since this is an interface, we can play around with it and do stuff with it. We'll see how that one goes. Otherwise, we're just going to wrap it behind a broker or something. So let's see how that one works. I'm going to go write a test in here, and I'm just going to go and say, well, this is our folder. These are our services. And then under these services, I'm gonna go and say virtualization, virtualization service tests like this. And this guy in here is gonna be interesting. I'm gonna make it public partial. And I'm gonna go here and say private read-only mock. We need this mock library here. So here we go. It's famous enough that now Visual Studio will find it for you. It doesn't do that with all the other NuGet packages, by the way. But this one is famous enough. So, okay, let's mock an IQueryable. And this will be a data source mock like this. And then let's do a CTOR and then the service itself, private. Oops, private read-only I virtualization service. Add reference from bVirtualization. Yes, please. And this is a virtualization service. And I'm going to go up in here and say, okay, let's initialize this guy. So let's see why this guy's mad. The generic type, oh, you need a type of some kind. Let's create some type. I can go here and say, we need just any type in the world. We can just say object for now because we really don't care. Like the type itself and what it is and what it doesn't matter to us technically. And we might just go ahead and just get rid of it altogether. We'll see. This is data source mock equal new mock IQueryable. So I mock the IQueryable, and then I'm gonna go here and say this dot virtualization service equal new virtualization service of type object, and then I'm gonna pass in the data source to it as inject the data source mock to it in here. So this is my as object like this. And of course, this guy is gonna be mad because we need to mock as object, I guess. Okay, object like this. Let's see if I'm actually really interested to see how our mock framework is gonna handle that scenario. It's be very interesting. Okay, so there you go. So I'd set some things up. Let me put in our let me put in also a notice in here. Unfortunately, it doesn't cross projects. Like it's not solution wide. It's actually project wide. So this is that. So okay, so there's that. Now I'm gonna go and write a test. So I'm gonna copy this guy here and I'm gonna create a new class. And I try to partialize the classes based on the responsibility. There's either logic, validation, or exceptions. So I'm just gonna go here and say logic for now. This is another class. And I'm gonna go here and write a fact. Get ready, Brian. It's gonna be your turn soon. You're gonna need to make it pass. Just FYI. So let's go here and there's the oh, it doesn't remember. That's really funny. Okay, here you go. Fact. So here's xunit fact, and then public void should skip and take from data source. So that's all it does on initialize. Should skip and take on initialize on load first page from data source. So that's basically what we have. So here's given when then we just want to verify that it actually executed what we think it's going to execute. The trick here is to go and say, I need a bunch of random numbers. So it's behavior driven. If I go and say, oh, let's make the start page this and that. So let me go ahead in here and kind of generate a random number. There's this really cool library that I use. It's called Dynamics. It basically helps me with random anything. It could randomize an iQueryable, whatever the case may be. So I'm just gonna go ahead and use that. Dynamics object filler. Here's that one guy. And we can also use, we're gonna use a couple of others, but let's just start with this. Okay, so I'm gonna put a little function here, private static int get random number, and then new int range like this. Come on. And then minimum to maximum 10, non-inclusive, and then get value. Okay. I say minimum 2 normally because when I do random number, I want to get, I guess in our case here, it would work to start from 0. So I'm going to keep it to 0. But in some cases, I usually use this get random number to create lists of things. And if you want to
Mhm.
test against lists, it's going to have to be more than 0 and more than 1 for sure. So I'm going to go back here and say, okay, so this is random number, random start at. So this is get random number. Here you go. And this is input start at. That's the random start at. I usually do this just for readability. And then in here I say random page size. This is get another random number. And then in here I'm going to go and say input page size, which is the random page size. Wherever that random page size came from, it doesn't matter. And I can even make it kind of pretty like this. And then let's go and set up our mock. So this mock guy, set up, right? And this is my data source. So I'm going to say source dot. First you start with take, right? Or is it
Skip.
skip? Skip.
Yeah.
So skip, that's the input start, right? And then also I want to go and set up also dot take, and that's
Mhm.
the input page size. And this guy should return some IQueryable. I'm going to create some random IQueryable, completely random. See, this is where dynamics comes again and says, okay, this particular random thing that you generated is what's going to be returned based on the values that you passed in. I am not really testing the skipping and the taking. That's outside of my scope because that's already implemented and built in. I just want to make sure that this call has happened and whatever happens underneath, it doesn't matter. So let's see if dynamics would actually help me kind of build a random IQueryable. So this is a filler and this is an IQueryable of an object, and this create create queryable filler, and this guy is gonna go in here and say return new filler with IQueryable object dot create. So this is gonna give me that. That's gonna give me this guy, and then up in here I'm gonna go and say public static IQueryable of an object. See, the thing itself is completely different because it's completely randomized, trying to test the behavior. And then here it says get random queryable. And this guy is gonna here and say create queryable filler dot create. Oh, create queryable. It can't see it because this guy is static and this guy is not. Create queryable filler dot create. All right, so that basically means I can go here and say IQueryable of an object. I really hope it can randomize for that. It'll be interesting. Let's see, random queryable equal and create random queryable. So there you go. And then I'm gonna go and say this guy is the let's see, this guy is gonna return so IQueryable object expected, actually returned queryable, which is coming from random queryable, and then another one that says here expected object expect. Oh, here you go, expected queryable equal return queryable. So I'm basically literally saying here whatever I'm passing in. So see the verbosity here is that I'm gonna go here and say it's gonna return this queryable, which it seems to be happy with. Now we need to go and say here's an IQueryable of an object in here, and I'm gonna go here and say actual queryable equals this dot service. So that's my service, and then load page first, input start date, input page size. I like how that it's doing my job for me. It's just I'm not writing anything. This is all it's all going right. And
Soon we'll
then
just soon we'll just start Visual Studio and we'll just then hit close.
yep, we're just gonna do close shop. We're gonna close shop, right? That's right. Okay. All right. Something that compares two lists together. Let's go with Fluent assertions. This is my second favorite library that basically helps me kind of compare two objects without having to worry about the reference. You know,
Mhm.
because most of the functions out there will say, oh, you know, it's not the same place in memory. No, it doesn't care.
Yeah.
So let's see, it should be equivalent to expected, but not just that, expected queryable, but not just that. I want to make sure that this call actually happened. So I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
go up in here and say, verify that this call has happened only once and only once, like this, times once. I'll be honest with you, I haven't done it on 2 different methods before, so we'll see how that one goes, but I'm excited. So it's times once, like this. Normally it's just one call. This one is chaining, so we'll see how that works. Mock is a pretty powerful library anyway. And then the last thing here, I want to make sure that no other calls have been made
I
within
was
that
going to say
function.
that.
See how strict now? We're very strict. We're basically saying you better not make any other smart moves in
Mm-hmm.
here. Okay, so let's see if we get a good failing test. Let's see if we can get a good failing test out of this. I'm gonna clean and build because it doesn't seem to be picking up yet. See, 64 gigs of RAM and we're still kind of slow. I know that VS 2022 is a 64-bit. I'm hoping really the final release would be charming, if you know what I mean. But let's see, let's see here. Let me run the test. So here's our test here. Something's gonna blow up. I can't believe that it will just go out right from day one. That's impossible. So here's this guy, virtualization. We might run into some interesting problems. Let's see what it's saying. It's saying object filler interface mocker missing. Okay, invalid operation object filler interface marker missing and type IQueryable not registered. So it doesn't know how to create a random. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do something nice. I'm gonna go here and say, okay, buddy, you don't want to do this. Let's do a list like this
Mm-hmm.
and give me that list in here. So that's a list. And then I'm going to go here and say create dot as queryable. Let's see if that would make it happy. I was kind of suspicious because I know like how is the filler is going to figure out this one. Let's see if we get a different error. Type initializer. It doesn't know how to deal with objects. Okay, now we're going to have to take it up a notch. So here's what I do when I deal with objects. I basically randomize. We could start with something as simple as string, but we're gonna take our test. But here's what I can do. So here's private static object, and in here I'm gonna go and say get random object or create random object. Create random object like this. Okay, that's the first piece. The second piece here is that it's me going and saying, okay, you have this random object. We could start just simply by returning a string, but I'm gonna do something really cool about it in terms of it could be a boolean, it could be anything. I'm just gonna start by a simple string in here. And I'm gonna in here in the setup, I'm gonna go and say, here's my filler, like this. And then from that filler, go ahead and on type setup, and then on type object, go ahead and use this create random object function. Okay, so we solved that problem, return the filler, no harm, no foul, we're good and dandy. Let's try this again. We're getting a new stuff. Okay, that means we're moving forward. Not supported, unsupported expression take object input page size. Expression methods here take may not be used to set up and verification expressions. Extension methods. See, and this is why I said we need a broker, because your broker is gonna go and say, you know, I will only be concerned about verifying what my broker is doing, and it's under my control. That's okay. That's what I thought is gonna happen. So let's just do this. Let's go up in here and say, here's a new folder. Brokers. See, this is why I try to keep my business logic local, all local
Mm-hmm.
models and local contracts. So let's do this. This is brokers, and I'm going to call it just data source broker. And then we're going to just throw whatever iQueryable in there and just let it do the work by itself. So I'm going to go here and say, here's a folder, data sources. And under data sources, I'm just going to go and create an interface in here that says, let's see here. This is your interface here. And this will be data source broker. So this is my broker. And this data source broker is going to give me a take capability, and it's going to give me a skip capability. And we can run the take, and then run the skip. It'll be two different calls that we can.
Hmm.
We don't have to just. We don't have to stack them. We can just go and say, check this out. Public IQueryable, whatever your IQueryable is, and then I'm gonna go up in here and say, I wish if it would just let me do the generic stuff, but check this. I'm gonna do it this way. Take and skip. What do you think?
Yep.
Or actually, in programming, they don't even do this. They just say take skip, just like value task. So integer start at, and in here integer page size. That's my interface. Brokers don't require unit tests because they're actually their job is literally to wrap up what we can't unit test. Basically, it's outside of our scope. So let's go back in here and add in a class, and I'm gonna go and say this data source, data
The
source.
brokers are meant to be very thin, aren't they? And just
Yes.
simply connect you to the outside world. Yeah.
Yep, that's all that they do. That's exactly what it is. I agree 100%. They make life a lot easier when you try to kind of focus on the um, what your service can control and what your service owns versus
Hmm.
anything else. Okay, so there's this guy. This is a data source broker. I'm gonna give it a type T, and I'm gonna say I data source broker like this, and I'm gonna go and implement this guy, and then whatever source is being passed in here. So this guy takes in and of itself takes a constructor, and we're just gonna pass whatever IQueryable with that type that it needs in there. So this is data source. And this guy here, I'm gonna define a private class member, IQueryable with T, and this is my data source in here. And all that we're going to do something very similar to the original one. We're just going to go up in here and say, um, this guy is,
Can I ask you a quick question?
yeah.
Why don't you press controls dot on the data source? Because it'll generate the read only and
Oh, you can,
initialize them.
yeah, absolutely. The only problem with it is that it's gonna go and do, it's gonna create it scoped. Like, look, if I do undo this, look, it's scoping it instead of fat arrowing it. That's the only thing.
Oh
If
yeah,
it's
yep,
Yeah, if it's
yep.
multiple read-onlys, I love that feature. It just makes my life much easier.
Yeah,
But anyway,
sorry, I just
no, you're
I,
fine.
I'm telling you out of code.
You're no, you're fine. You're absolutely fine. I really appreciate that, Brian. You're just fine. Okay, so there's that part, and then because this guy doesn't really care about particular implementation, just gonna go and say this dot data source dot take start at, and then the other thing is skip, and this is sorry, it's skip first, right?
Hmm.
Skip like this, and that would be start at, and then take, which is page size. So now we wrapped this iQueryable up behind a contract. Now we
Hmm.
get to go back to our favorite service here and go and say, hey, now we can do this right by simply going and saying, no, I don't need this iQueryable anymore. I have a thing called iData source broker like
Yep, that
this.
you can inject. Yep.
Yep, and I can inject this data source broker in here. So let me change all of that. And then I can go here and say data source broker of type T, data source broker. This is my data source. Okay, so now my test is gonna change a tiny bit, but our lives are gonna get better so fast we won't even know what happened. So instead of having to kind of do this, I kind of had my doubts about it, but I said let's go with it and see. Okay, data source broker, so that's my guy, and here's data source broker mock. Here you go, and now this guy can go up in here, and this is now a data source broker. And let's see here. Yeah, everything else should be just fine. The last thing here is that the code that we need to verify it's actually take skip. And this will take start at, much simpler interface, more
Hmm.
focused on the purpose, and you have one method. This feels much more right than the original approach. So let's do this. But this is what we do. The thing about this is that we're growing and learning as we go. So okay, so this is what I have here. So let's see if I can get you an actual really good failing test. There's a bad fail and a good fail. There you go. Not implemented. No, not implemented exception. So now we got
Awesome.
into a,
We're
okay.
failing at the right spot.
Yes, and I'm gonna and then I'm gonna give you this. So here's what I do normally, Brian. I basically go here and say, take let me put this entire project into so let me push this first. So this is Git. Let me push this into the existing repository that we created together. So this is existing remote, and then I just need to pick up. I know this screen is not visible. Let me see if I can make this screen visible. The one with the remote. Just share screen. Normally I do it in a very crappy way where I go and say, yep, it's not visible. Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna take the whole project and put it into a place where we created this folder. I think I kind of cloned it. I brought it down. If you just bear with me 1 second, we'll make this work real quick. So this is bVirtualization, and here's the cloned repository. I know you can't see this. We'll get to that part in one moment. And then let me go here. Do you have a favorite do you have a favorite terminal by any chance, or do you just like this is the terminal that I use, and some people in this day and age people will frown at you if you're using a terminal, you know, and actually doing your command lines by yourself. It's kind of weird. People be like, what kind of weird guy does command lines? And I'm like, yeah, that's how you tell, you know,
Uh,
how long I've
I,
been
st-
doing this.
I started in CPM.
Oh. Okay, okay. Respect. All right. I'm gonna copy this whole thing in here. I'm gonna push it straight. Both you and I have direct access to master. So I'm just gonna create a very simple branch, and I'm gonna let you pull that branch down, and then we can go from there. So here is this solution, just pasting in the solution here real quick. This is the old, quick and dirty way for me to do this. Let me open up
Mhm.
Visual Studio back up again. I just want to make sure that I'm not including, this annoying thing about including the binaries. I remember, Brian, when I first started like my career, I worked with some folks that thought that's the right thing to do, to put the binaries in the source control. And I said to them, well,
uh, I've seen that exact same scenario. I arrived at a work site and they had a repo that I pulled and it was 3.6 gig and I nearly fell over.
ooh, ooh, oh man, that just tells me the whole story right there. All right. Okay, be careful now because these branches now are called main. They're not, master branches anymore. So just heads up. And then Habib, and then I'm gonna go here and say, so this is a branch, and then I'm gonna go here and say, this is foundation service, so foundations, and then load first page, and then this is retrieve. So this is basically how I break things down. And then I'm gonna put the name of the failing test in here. I usually just put the name of the failing test and then thin arrow, and then I say fail. So if you look at
Mhm.
the commit history, it's purest approach. You see every single step,
You
as the
create a
code
failing
develops.
test and yep.
Yes. So okay, let's hope this one goes in. Going, gone. All right, it's your turn, my friend.
Okay, I haven't even pulled the repository yet, so
That's all right. Go ahead and clone that guy, and let's get going. I'll switch over to your screen now, Brian. Mm, go ahead.
I have to go to Git.
Yes, sir. I'm hoping that you have all your SSH keys, all the stuff already in there, I hope. Okay.
No.
All right, clone that sucker down and pull in the branch and get going.
So I normally hit this,
Yep.
go, and I normally just hit this link here. So is that what we do?
Nice. Yeah, do that. Let's do that. Like I said, I'm a very old school. I just write command line, copy the SSH, and people just be like, "Why are you doing that?" It's 2021, bro. Why are you doing that?
I just want to know where to put it. I'm going to put
Yeah,
it
you're
straight
fine.
on the. Yep.
Brian, I'm excited. This is all exciting stuff. We're building stuff together. Uh-huh. All right.
Oops,
Okay.
went onto the wrong screen. Hang on, it's just
Yep.
I got
Yep.
three
Yep.
screens here, and as I slide it around, it's changing its resolution
Take your time,
because
my
I
friend.
because I got it on the real low resolution for the viewers.
Mm-hmm. So if you just like it won't let you if you maximize, like double click on the
I
header.
tried to do that, and it sent it to the wrong
Yeah,
window.
now it's perfect. I can see you now.
Yeah,
It's good.
yeah.
Yep. So now pull out my branch. It should be somewhere down there where you can just, if you click on this bVirtualization piece, or if you want to use the command line, no judging. Well, there's nothing there because that's the master. It didn't merge anything yet, right? Right.
Mm-hmm. So what do I got to do?
So do you see this next to main at the very bottom? Do you see this arrow that says
Yeah, yeah,
bVirtualization? This
yes.
part here, right? So click on remotes and then double click on that branch.
This one.
The second one. Yes, yes. Yeah. Now it's gonna pull all the stuff. Now run the test and let's make sure things are falling apart properly. Are
Good.
you having fun? Because I'm having fun. All right, you're gonna need to double click on that solution because it won't let you.
Yep.
There it is. Okay. Oh my God, Brian, where did the time go? It's already almost 40 minutes. Yikes. People always tell me, I don't know how you speak that long or that much. Does your jaw hurts you? I'm like, well, you're excited about something, you know. All right.
So test.
hmm
Went to another screen as usual.
Ah. Okay.
I'll put it there.
Okay. You probably, yeah, it'll probably do the build for you. Ooh, do you have .NET 6 installed on your machine?
I do. Did it open it with the old version of Visual Studio? It did. Huh.
If you open Package Manager, do .NET dash dash version.
Yeah, so it's opening with my old version of Visual Studio instead of
Ha ha
2022.
ha ha ha. See,
So if
command line wins, Brian. I'll tell you that. All right.
this should pick it up that it was open. So
Sounds good. Sounds good. All right. You have a lot of amazing ideas about, taking Blazor to the next level. And I think this community support and this passion and a technology that kind of gives you ideas is how that technology really survives. You can spend as much money as you want on marketing, but still, nothing is gonna take it to the next level. This is why Shawshank Redemption didn't make it as a movie. It was hard to remember. It's always a word of mouth. Anyways, yeah, you probably want to open it as a solution first, right?
oh yep.
Yeah. Okay, you're in the right branch. Let's see how that one goes. Here we go. Okay,
Good.
nice. Give me that nice big red button.
Where
We
is
should
it?
we should probably get rid of delete me at some point, but I'll keep that as a kind of refactor code drop for later. Why
Okay.
it's not realizing? Do you have to rebuild the solution or something?
Is it? Oh, yes.
There we
There we
go.
go.
Yay, we have a failing test. Okay, now let's make that sucker pass. All right. Yep.
That's simple.
That's it. That's it. We probably want to
Uh,
fat arrow this one since we're yeah, and it's not even asynchronous.
yeah,
It's not even
no, that's right.
asynchronous. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did it actually add the async for you outside the box?
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. That's
Yeah.
freaking amazing. It just realized the messages, literally our messages are flying over the ocean. Okay, so if we fat arrow this one, what do you think? We could probably fat arrow this whole thing.
Yeah. Like that.
Expression body. I should probably use that fancy language instead of fat arrow. All right, let's see.
I just thought I'd show the viewers the way I do it.
All right. Yay!
All good. First test done.
Yes, sir. First functionality too. Yay! Okay. So commit that one and then make another commit for deleting the delete me. And then that's a wrap, my friend, for today. We gotta go much faster later. This is just setting up things, right?
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
tried to. Me buttons are all gone. Where's me commit now?
So if you click on that pencil, yeah, there you go. You got it. You
Yeah.
got it.
Um. So, what would you write as a title on
Yeah,
that?
I usually just copy the test name that you just made pass and then a thin arrow that
Yep.
basically says pass, all uppercase. Not this one, the other. Yep, yep, yep. Yep, 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 yep. Should be
Yeah.
true. True. There you go.
Yep. Like that.
Yes, yes, sir. Just thin arrow. I know it's a little bit nitty, but it makes the code looks beautiful, like in terms of history. All right, that's it. Commit all and push. All right. All right, we have a deal. We built our. I am so happy about this. This is our very first, and then also again for the people that are kind of following us and following our videos. You should have seen some of the comments that people left in there. People were like, man, this is amazing. This is infinite possibilities. I love that. Just wait. Normally, when I put YouTube videos out there, it takes a little bit of time to kind of propagate. I still receive comments on some videos that I posted like 3 years ago. you know, because it's sitting there on the web. And anyway, let me jump right back into the repository that we have. I think we can merge that pull request. Brian, we'll take a quick look at it in here. So let me go back here. Let me share my screen. Stop screen, share screen, window, and then let's go here. Okay, so here's our branch, my friends. This is here, and this is I usually go and say this is foundation services and then implement take skip or skip take. And if I create that pull request in here, we should basically look at the history. Look, Brian.
Mhm.
So basically, it tells you the whole story about how this feature came to be. Now imagine this on a large scale. Like if
Yep.
I were to show you the one of the most busiest projects that I have, and people are already opening up the pull requests and all that. If you look in here, you look at the entire history. Look one step at a time, and
Mhm.
contributors from all over the world that you can see. It's a beautiful way to represent code. Anyway, let's take a look at the files that we have here. So we have delete me. I'll let you delete that one and push it through. That's fine. That's for you. And I could do it too if you don't want to. But here's our implementation. This is all clean and good. This can be fat arrowed. We can get to that in a little refactor later. And then yeah, Brian, I think we're good. Let's go. So I'm just gonna go ahead and merge this guy like this. And this is our first feature, my friend.
Thank you.
All right. So anything else before we wrap up? Anything at all? What do you think about this? Was this a good experience? Do you think this is a nice way to, this is how I work with all the teams. Like whatever I am, I basically sit down with people. You probably have seen this, Brian, at some point in time. Sometimes people are a little bit mean to each other, especially in the tech industry, especially when someone is really, really high in their skill
Yep.
set and someone. So, I experienced this when I first entered the industry, and I said, okay, I'm gonna enforce kind of pair programming so people actually dedicate time for each other, so they don't have to feel like they're giving charity when it's part of their job to finish the task, and they have to teach that other person, otherwise they
Yep.
can't move forward.
It's a
This is how
brilliant
I
idea. I really like it, dear.
yeah, me too. I really love it. I learned a lot from it. See, you and I are just sitting like this, and you're using all these different things, and you're gonna, talk about some certain things while we're pairing. I'm getting more of it than just the code that is being written, and that's the true value that I can get out of
Mhm.
this. Anyway, as usual, it's a pleasure meeting with you, sir. I look forward to hanging out with you again tomorrow. And I'll make sure, we, kind of cover this whole. By the way, this application is super simple, but what I get out of it is to get to work with you and publish something and do things together. And I think we're gonna get much faster anyway. Thank you,
Yes,
sir.
no, and thank you very much.
Go ahead. Go ahead. You were going to say
Look,
something. No, 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 no.
no,
Wait,
no,
wait,
I
wait.
was just saying, thank you very much, and I think it's going to be a good experience for the viewers as well. It sort of gives them the insight of what it takes to get like an idea right through to production. So,
Absolutely, sir. All right.
mm,
I'll see you tomorrow. Take care.
thank you.
Thank you so
Bye.
much. Bye.